I was back on Piers Morgan, and my clip was the lead off because I'm the crazy person that defends trans people's right to live and exist and have equal rights. Yes, in everything, including sports. Um, but I was originally going to maybe be on with Riley Gaines. And Riley Gaines, if you guys don't remember, I believe was a swimmer. And she's famous because she's a loser. That's right. She lost to a trans woman and she's made it her literal identity, done everything to like make sure we all know that trans women shouldn't compete in women's sports and freaking out. Goes on Joe Rogan, goes on a bunch of other things. And honestly, that shit's embarrassing as fuck, yo. You're going to be a straight up loser. You're going to make your whole identity out of being not only a transphobe, but a loser. Please, why don't you train? Why don't you train a little bit more? Like, seriously, though, seriously, turning female athletes who are mad at a trans person for beating them into superstars is the saddest way to get famous. Just the saddest. Okay, but I wasn't on with Riley, so I didn't get opportunity to call her a loser to her face. But I was on with Tommy Lahren, so close second. And I was on with also a guy named James. I can't remember his last name, but he's gonna. Guys, there's a lot to go through on this, but he is going to actually be on my side. And then there's another woman named Esther. And Esther, although very right on Palestine, very wrong on trans rights. And here we go.
Lionel Messi puts his hand up and says, actually, I'm feeling like a woman today. Do you play him in the American women's national team, Francesca? Yes or no?
Yes, right now. Hell yeah. Are you kidding me?
They are useful idiots like you that are validating ascientific nonsense. There's no such thing as gender identity.
Esther, you're the only thing making anyone angry or incensed right now, so you're causing me a mental health issues.
Your guests sit here and they cry boo-hoo
trans
tears
women
about trans rights, but then they dismiss Caitlyn Jenner.
Girl, don't you have a Beyonce album to get this off? All right, there.
Teenage runner Aidan Gallagher became the Oregon girls 200-meter state champion last week, posting one of the fastest times in the state's history with a remarkable display of power and stamina. But as Aidan crossed the finish line, something, well, pretty unusual happened. Instead of joyous cheering and adulation, many of the watching spectators loudly booed. Well, the same thing happened when Gallagher received a gold medal on the podium, but the runner-up was loudly cheered when she received her silver. And there's an explanation for all this. Gallagher is a transgender athlete who was born a biological male and therefore has a vastly superior physiology to show for it. And there's viral video clips from the race show.
Has a vastly superior physiology. Everybody knows men have vastly superior physiologies. That's why nature decided to give them the power to bear children and life, right? Isn't that right? That the uterus is in the... Wait a minute. I am so done with the vastly superior physiology conversation. Like, it is like he's saying it like it's a natural fact, dude. Do you all think testosterone's that good? Do you think that LeBron James has more testosterone than everyone? That's not what makes people good athletes. Having more or less testosterone has nothing to do with it. Although I will say human growth hormone, which a lot of athletes absolutely use, and yet nobody says anything about it, definitely does affect that. But it's just like, I'm not even prepared to get into how much I have to say about this issue, but this is how Piers sets this up for all of us, right? Basically, isn't it great that, and here he goes on.
Gallagher towered over many of the competing girls, displaying greater height, power, and speed that frankly made a mockery of any pretense to fairness or equality. The reaction of the crowd is a small moment in the grand scheme of things, but it might prove to be extremely significant. A couple of years ago, it would have been very different. This would have been hailed as he led his progressive symbolic victory for inclusivity and tolerance. But now mainstream opinion is finally waking up to what is honestly insane. World Athletics has banned trans athletes who've been through male puberty from competing against women. But the state-level bureaucrats are miles behind. The Oregon authorities say they define a woman based on their consistently asserted gender identity. But honestly, That's just disingenuous bullshit. Yes, trans people
Oh,
deserve the same
shoot.
rights from the
Piers is saying bullshit on his show. He said shit. He's on YouTube now.
state as everybody else. They should have fairness and equality. Should have the same human rights as me. But you can't consistently assert the massive physical differences that come from
Bro, you're not winning any athletic competition. Let me just say that. So now he's going to go back to like, but you can't, men's bodies are superior, except for mine, obviously, because I've had one too many Neapolitan ice creams. But other than that, I like biscuits. Why can't we have biscuits?
being born male or female and compete in sport. Those rights cannot come at the expense of women's rights to fairness and equality in their own sport. Now, for years, anyone
Shut the fuck up about women's rights in sports. You don't care. Nobody cares.
prepared to speak up about this, like me, was instantly shamed and vilified as a transphobe. But the reaction of the crowd in Oregon, which is actually skews more liberal than conservative, shows the silent majority might finally be fighting back and letting their feelings be heard loud and clear. Well, joining me to debate this and more are comedian and podcaster James Barr, Uncensored contributor Esther Krakow, Outkick host Tommy Laren, and the host of the Bitchuation Room podcast, Francesca Fiorentini.
There we
welcome to
go.
all of you.
Full
Tommy, let me start
Bitchuation
with
Room.
you.
Hang on. Can we just is Esther's last name? Is Esther's last name Cracker? I'm just gonna leave that there.
I watched a video of this as a father of a 12-year-old girl who loves a bit of sport. And honestly, my heart just sank. When I heard the booing, I was thrilled, not because the athlete was being booed. I felt awful for the trans athlete, but because I
Did you actually feel awful for the trans athlete? I don't think you gave a shit about the trans athlete.
finally felt that the silent majority were finding their voice. What did you think?
The silent majority.
Yeah, I also
I'm gonna
think
fast forward,
that
Tommy,
it's
'cause
big
it's
that
too
this
much.
happened in a place like Oregon. Oregon is not conservative, maybe certain parts, but certainly the majority of Oregon is certainly more on the left side. So I think the fact that the crowd is saying, hey, this is unacceptable, that's a big moment. But we just have to stop denying this, Piers. I mean, the silent majority, and I would agree that the majority, actually, the more vocal majority now, is saying that this is absolutely ludicrous. And listen, I think we need to stop talking about biological men competing against biological women in women's sports. This is a trans person, a trans woman competing against actual women. Stop dismissing women by calling us biological women. We are just women. So I want to put that out there first. But why are we constantly, when I say we, why is popular culture constantly asserting that trans people, their feelings, their emotions, their inclusion is more important than the majority of women who just want to have fairness, want to compete, want to have achievements, accomplishments, and opportunities? Why do their feelings matter more than the feelings of the women that they're competing against? It's ridiculous. We keep coddling and kowtowing to this madness. I hope we're seeing the end of it, and I think within the next couple of years we will.
The next couple of years, we will excitedly ban all trans people from sports. Don't worry. Progress is coming, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to ban people. Now, I want to just take a moment to say that both Tommy Laren and Piers Morgan are actually correct about public opinion. And there might be people listening to me right now who also believe that trans women, although notice how nobody talks about trans men, even though they're the ones literally getting testosterone. They're getting testosterone injections, but nobody's mad about trans men competing in men's sports. But let's put that aside. I want to say that according to NBC News, 69% of the American public does believe that transgender people shouldn't compete in sports of their own gender, of the gender they identify, which is not like that's a majority. That's 2023 Gallup poll. 1,000 people polled in the United States, 69% say that. Now, I'm totally ready to admit that that exists. Like, I'm not going to deny that reality that many people believe that. But I also think we have work to do. That we need to actually make progress on this, because I will reiterate, the number of trans athletes who are not just competing, but winning, and remember, nobody gives a shit when trans athletes lose, is so minuscule, is so minor. Just because if you think, again, these are the same people, although Piers Morgan swears he believes in trans rights for everything else, sure. But you'll hear Esther soon freak out about bathrooms, and I'll explain, I have thoughts on that for there, but it's like, the idea is like, they think that it's just sports. Oh, it's just sports. It's not. Trans people are a fraction of all people, And trans athletes are a fraction of trans people, right? There's not there's not disproportionately more Olympic gold medalists among the trans population. People are just insane. So this is me being asked to get mad at a high school track and field competition in Oregon on a fucking national platform. Get mad or support people booing a minor. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do that for literally anyone. This is the least important story of not just the day, not just a week, not just a month, the entire year. It is the least important story. Now, I don't go fully that, but I do explain sort of why, like where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed that every woman, frankly, doesn't agree with you.
I'm amazed at every woman. In other words, you're not really a woman if you don't hate trans women. And in fact, that's like, I love that. Again, this is like they want to revoke my woman status. They're like, if you don't actually hate trans women, are you a real woman? What's a woman? A woman is someone who hates trans women. Like, no thanks, not me.
Unfairness and inequality is so obvious. But Francesca, I can see you actually going berserk here with indignation. So presumably you don't agree.
I mean, I just please don't speak for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, either of you, please don't speak for me. Please don't speak for all women. Just let's get that out of the way right now, because I do disagree. I think about what if your 12-year-old kid was Aiden? Wouldn't that be incredible? Wouldn't you be proud of Aiden?
No.
And how much would it?
No, absolutely not.
So this is where I have a choice, because he goes, no, I wouldn't. Absolutely not. And I go, cool. And what I want to say is, you're a shit dad. You're a shit parent. And in fact, parents of trans kids like have said and have testified actually to the fact that once they finally embrace their kid for the gender that they believe they are, that everything opened up for them, that everything was like good. Their kid's mental health was better. Their relationship with their kid was better. They suddenly got along. Like everything was better when they finally just supported who their kid was. That's it. But no, you have Piers openly being like, no, I wouldn't be happy. I'm not even saying, wouldn't it have sucked to be the kid? Because I guess he said it would have. I'm just saying, wouldn't you be happy for your kid if they won a competition like that? No, I would not.
Unless that child had not even reached puberty, and in the case of my daughter, for example, and someone is trying.
Now we are talking about his daughter's puberty. Suddenly I'm in a conversation I really don't want to be in, and I almost mentioned that, but I held back.
Trying to convince her that if you just put your hand up and say that you're a boy, you can suddenly compete against a different biological sex. I'd say it's all madness.
Piers, this is what's crazy about it. Do you think that that's what's driving trans women to compete as athletes, is that they're like, if I transition to become a woman, I can win a gold medal in a high school track and meet competition.
Well, no, hang on, Francesca. I don't care.
That is so absurd to me. It's the same thing. Hang on, let me speak.
I don't care. The reality is they're doing it, right? And the point is that, to me, the answer is obvious.
They're not. The reality is they're doing it. So he's basically like, yes, that's what I think they're doing. I think that trans athletes are part of a massive conspiracy to win a bunch of high school, middle school, elementary school, and college medals so that they can be in the feel the power and the glory of, wait for it, women's sports, the most glorified, overvalued, highest paying, most powerful roles in our society. If aliens were to land tomorrow and they're like, who runs things around here? Everyone would automatically say, obviously, women who do sports. I can see that. You can see that. Women who do sports, it is perhaps the most glorified position in all the land. It's just like so funny to me that they think that transitioning is a long con to win a shitty medal at a high school. Are you fucking serious? And again, I will get into this, but let's wait for the bathroom part. Not doing
either
it to win a medal. They're doing it because that is their identity.
But they're winning
and that
medals
is-
at the expense of actual women who can't compete with them physically.
Okay.
It's why,
Can I just
it's why
say,
we
I'm
separate the
embarrassed.
sexes.
You know what? Like, I actually Googled
I'm
this. I'm like,
embarrassed to be
Hang
a
on,
woman.
hang on, hang on.
Oh,
I'll come
Piers
to you.
really wants. Oh, look at him. He's latching on to me. He's, hang on. I wanted to answer this, and I've got a lot of gotcha questions. Here we go, and then we'll eat biscuits. I'm embarrassed to be a woman when I see women freaking out about trans women
Wow.
winning one out of so many
It's not
competitions.
just one.
Okay,
It's happening in
let's just
swimming with Leah Thomas.
hang on.
It's happening in all.
Seriously though, it really is embarrassing for me. Like I think look, this is when men see like Andrew Tate be like, you've got to get bitches, and in order to do that, you've got to treat them like trash. And I say that the bigger your muscle, the more rape you're allowed to do. Like when men see Andrew Tate, I imagine that some men who are decent people are like, that's a really horrible representation of men. And that makes me embarrassed. When me, as a woman, sees other women freaking out about trans women in sports, it truly makes me embarrassed. Like that makes me recoil because I'm like, ugh, like revoke your vagina. You know what I'm saying? Give your vagina to someone who needs it, like a trans woman.
All sorts of sports.
Yes, because it makes us look really pathetic, honestly. It makes us look like losers and whiners. And guess what? I'm not a loser or a whiner. You know what I actually want to talk about when it comes to women's sports? Why is Caitlin Clark being paid 80 times less than her counterpart entering the NBA?
Well, that's
because
quite
she's in the
straightforward too.
WNBA.
Because nobody watches
Women
it.
don't want to talk about that.
Hold on. Can I ask you a
Women
question?
are like, Esther, because nobody watches it, because fuck women. I defend women's sports. Because nobody fucking cares about women. Fuck women, all women, fuck the sports, fuck the shirts, fuck the... They deserve to be raped, but I believe in women. Like, I just, like, nobody would get, like, okay. Now, obviously, she's going to make the capitalist argument. They'll sort of like, okay, but nobody watches it. Again, talk to anyone who smarter than me about women's sports. It is chicken or the egg when it comes to actual investment in them, right? Advertisers, not really advertisers. Caitlin Clark's got like sponsorships up the waz, but a lot of advertisers and cable companies and CEOs, execs, and whatever, they'll always be like, "Well, there's no audience," and it's like, well, if you don't air it, there can't be an audience. If a woman scores a goal in the middle of the woods and no one's around to see it, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to put it on air first. You have to actually make space for women's sports before you can say nobody watches it. Nobody watches it because the shit's not aired. You know what I'm saying?
Hold on,
talk about
Francesca.
that.
Let me ask you a question. If I hit you over the head with a bat,
Here we go.
and I said the plan wasn't to kill you, it's because you had a fly in your head, would you still not go to the police for assault? Does my intention matter? Because that's exactly what
I'm just trying to Rube
What-
Goldberg,
that's exactly
whatever
what
the hell
you're
it is
saying.
you're saying.
That's exactly
No,
what
I'm
that
with you.
isn't.
just because trans people are not
Do you know what?
identifying as trans to basically erode women's sports, that makes it okay. That's exactly what they're doing. This is
You think that's what they're
absolutely
doing?
I
When
wanna
you
say
think
something.
that
Hang on,
trans
don't
people
go
were
over each
put
other.
on Earth
Let me finish.
to
You know what?
they're eroding women's sports, guys. Look, even some people who don't believe that trans women should participate in sports or of their gender, like, even you all know that's bullshit. Eroding women's sports. Yeah, before all this, we really would talk about the Oregon high school track and field meets. I mean, like, who was in first place, who was in second, like who was bronze, like who had an injury, and we it was just so impactful for everyone. And now that the trans have decided to compete, it's all eroded.
The issue
Attack
is
women's
you know what
sports.
the
Don't
issue
talk
is.
over each other.
You know what the
Let
issue
Esther
is.
finish her
funny to
point,
me.
then
You know
can
what the
respond,
issue is?
Francesca.
They are useful idiots like you that are validating ascientific nonsense. There's no such thing as gender identity. being trans identifying is a mental illness, a reality that exists only in your head, should not be validated, and specifically not at the expense of people that are just going about their business trying to win sporting tournaments or trying to use
There's
a loo.
useful
And
idiots
if
like you that are leading to
feel-
the
if
death
you
of trans
feel
people.
embarrassed
Because
about people
All right, let
thinking
Francesca
differently,
respond.
then you can basically go to an island where all women think like you, and you can compete with all the biological men you want, but do not impose your backward views on the rest of us and have the
Wow.
audacity to call us regressive.
Okay, Francesca, you respond.
Don't impose your backwards view on us and call us regressive. So here's the thing about my reaction. When she called me useful idiot, I was like, oh. I was like, I need to start filing my nails for this because I took offense. And I have to say, and I did say what she's doing is leading to the death of trans people. But when she said transgenderism is a mental illness, I really should have taken more issue with that. I was just, again, the useful idiot was ringing in my ear because I'm obviously a narcissist. But fuck you. Transgenderism is a mental illness. Fuck you, man. Just like, seriously, fuck you. And this is what, if any of haters are watching this right now, let me just put it to you like this. You will never know what it's like to be in the wrong body. Just like if you're not poor, you'll never know what it's like to not know where your next meal is coming from. Just like if you're black, you'll never know what it's like to be treated by the police in a completely different manner. Just like if you are a woman, you're not going to know what it's like when, dudes don't refuse to make eye contact with you and just talk to the men in the room. Let's talk to the men. You know what I'm saying? All kinds of things. There are so many reasons. And so I remember when I was getting, for lack of a better term, woke on trans issues, and I was 19 and I was in college and I was organizing alongside, activists for different causes, against the war, for global justice, whatnot. And I had trans comrades. And they were, first of all, so kind to help people who didn't understand, explain different terms, different terminology, what pronouns were, how people like to identify, like female to male, male to female. Like, it all was new to me. I didn't study it. I didn't actually take, and I should have, but I didn't take like a study of like the gay rights movement or the trans rights movement. I think that would have been tight. Did a lot of women's study stuff. But I think when it fully hit me, when I was able to be like a full ally, in my opinion, was when I truly realized that I will never understand what it is like. That there is no part of me, if I think it's different, if I think it's strange, if it doesn't make sense to me, that is actually all irrelevant. That what is relevant is empathy and compassion. And what is relevant is trans people living lives of dignity, trans people being able to be supported, trans people not being relegated, shunned by their communities, by their families, by their churches, by their workplaces. And once I centered that, once I center human rights and how I would want to be treated, how everyone needs to be treated, everything else goes away. Everything that you feel about, I don't know, that'd be kind of weird. Could you imagine doing that? Everything that you feel about, but shouldn't trans women or trans girls not participate in women's sports? Everything you feel about, well, what about hormone replacement therapy for a 13-year-old that it's trans? Isn't that weird? Shouldn't we No, all of that goes away. And you realize this is about people's individual rights. This is about people's individual bodies. This is about people being able to live as full citizens in any society. And that includes being able to be athletes in their high schools. This is about the right for families to privacy. This is about rights to do with your body what you will. And that sounds really Republican, to be super pro-liberty, pro-privacy. Get off my lawn. Get off my fucking dick. Get off the dick that I want to cut off. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it's about. It's not about truly understanding. If you think you're never going to understand it, you won't. You may never understand because you'll never understand what it's like to be trans, period. So once you let that go, just let it go. You can let it go. It doesn't have to make sense in your mind. But humanity, but people, but civil rights, that has to make sense in your mind. But equal treatment has to make sense in your mind. But not booing a 16-year-old should make sense in your mind.
I'll come to
All right.
James.
My response is this. Look, I care more about human life and people actually. I care about the right to privacy. I care about people surviving and living in this world. Yes, I do.
You don't seem to care about the right to privacy of biological women not wanting to share their spaces with biological men. What about them?
What about the number of trans youth who
hold
commit suicide every single year?
What about biological women not wanting to share a bathroom with a biological man? Talk about that.
Now we're talking about bathrooms. So she wants to go into a bathroom and she's interrupting me.
Answer that question. What about them? Do they not matter?
Look, lady, you can go into every bathroom and pick a fight with every person who you think is in the wrong bathroom. That's your prerogative.
If a man goes into a bathroom with my daughter,
a teenager,
what should I do?
A teenager being booed. Guys, so here's how you know I'm actually crushing this debate. Let me just explain for any asshole that's watching this as I'm not crushing this debate. When someone else just moves the conversation, you don't let them. When someone's like, what about the bathrooms? Bitch, we're talking about transports. Nobody's talking about bathrooms. Because that shit stopped polling well with Republicans and they stopped talking about it. Oh, yeah. And by the way, I was just at the fucking Seattle airport and there was nothing but shared bathrooms. Each person got a private stall. And I didn't see anybody freaking out about it, although I did hear a story about two women going at it with one another because each of them thought the other was trans, which is really fucking hilarious. So that's why I said, it's your prerogative if you want to inspect everyone's genitals who goes into the bathroom. You know what I like to do in the bathroom? I like to take a shit in peace. I don't even really like to take a shit in a stall that's all women. But now, with these co-ed bathrooms where you got like ceiling to floor privacy, hell yeah, I'm dropping one. You know what I'm saying? Subscribe to the Bitchuation Room right here. I'll tell you where and when I drop it. CTAC, 9 a.m. Monday. I'm just kidding. Fucking with you. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room if you like me. Subscribe to this channel. Obviously, what are you doing? Look, I'm owning this, bitch. Let's not bully, okay? I believe it was Melania Trump who said, be best. And we know what bullying leads to. Stephen Miller, Okay, so here's Franny trying to lighten it up a little bit because we going real hot and heavy real quick. And I had a few lines prepared and be best was one of them, as was we know what bullying leads to, which is Stephen Miller. And those are just good lines, just solid lines. Shows she got a sense of humor. She's smart. What doesn't she have? What doesn't she have? Stay mad, haters.
Francesca, I'm going to come to James, but because to me, there's conflating two issues. You can absolutely support trans rights to fairness and equality, as I do and consistently have.
Sure.
But you can also see that there is obviously a massive problem now, increasing now in women's sport. And there's a reason, and we've had this conversation, James, but you gave a preposterous answer last time. There's a reason we separate sexes in the Olympics, in the World Championships, because otherwise women would never win anything.
Look, I think
so. That's why we do it. It's not because women aren't great athletes.
Women would never
They're great
win
athletes
anything.
when competing.
Women would never win anything is just really, really funny to say. Again, Piers, who obviously Adonis, I mean, underneath all of that, just chiseled, who thinks that like the male body, like is like the perfect specimen of strength and speed. And it's like, no, man, it's that women wouldn't win. It's not that women wouldn't win anything. That's so ridiculous. And also, guys, here's the reason why we don't do genital checks and we don't do hormone checks, although, you know, human growth hormone, that could be different, and steroids and stuff like this. Because actually, if you did hormone level checks, there are some biological women who have more testosterone in them than men. And there's some men who have a lot of estrogen. It changes. And so gender, again, is fluid. It's not confined. And so the way that we generally organize ourselves is by asking people and people identifying as women, as men. And if you think, and this is my thing with the bathrooms, if you think there is a grand conspiracy that, well, why wouldn't you just transition to a woman, take a bunch of estrogen, go on some hormone blockers for testosterone, spend thousands of dollars to get chest surgery and have breasts, spend even more money to go through genital surgery, right? And have your, like, basically, I think it's basically trans affirming care, but I'm just doing this. They, like, it is incredibly intense to have surgery to get a vagina. I think it's like I think the penis goes inside. It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm sorry. But it's if you think that biological men, in quotes, are going through all of that to compete in women's sports, you are so fucking out of your mind. And also, if you think that biological men are undergoing all that, getting their peen turned inside in to transition so they can go to bathrooms and prey on biological women, you're so out of your mind. And you know why? Because that's what you would do. I've made this point before, but everyone who thinks, because they cannot wrap their brains around someone actually being trans, mostly men, think, oh, they're doing it so they can watch women pee because that's what they would do. Oh, they're doing it so they can finally be a gold medalist because that's what they would do with their fucking flabby ass bodies. They think that suddenly in women's sports, they would absolutely crush it and be an incredible, oh my God, I'd be an Olympian. This body, this body is a fucking women's Olympian. It's because that's the way their sick little minds work. And it's easier for some people to identify with perverts, i.e. anyone who would go into a bathroom to watch other people pee, than it is to identify with a trans person that literally just wants to use a bathroom. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you guys? Do you understand? Like, it is because that is the warped ass mind. And I made this point on Twitter, and I'll make it here again. It is the equivalent of being like, so why'd you transition? Is it because you could have boobies, like super accessible, and you could just like touch them all day long and like squish them and like touch them, and be like, oh, that's my big boobs. I got big bazongas. I got big bazongas. I could touch them. Like, that is what some cis men think. Sorry, I'm not using proper terms, cis. I don't know. I've been like so inculcated by this biological man bullshit. That is what cis men think. They think obviously, some reactionary cis men believe that, like, you would become trans so you could touch on titties all day long and those titties would be your own. Like, that's because that's what you would do. Anyway, yes. Meanwhile, in Suk says high school logic. Yes, exactly what it is. It's fucking high school logic. Thank you, Todd Gentry, for that super chat. And thank you, Just Julie, for this. There's a lot more. Christ, this is so long.
It gives people physically born.
Listen, I have so much to say. I want to explode. Firstly, Esther, you're the only thing making anyone angry or incensed right now. So you're causing me a mental health issue. So really, if there's a mental illness, it's actually you. I would like to take a pill
you can all be mentally unwell together
from my life.
Going
back to the state here, like most of the female winners in this sport, they are hitting around 22 to 24 seconds, which is exactly what the gold medalist won here. And then also following up with what you said.
What's your point?
My point is, this is normal for a woman.
No, you're missing
the normal speed for a woman in a race. But let's get back to what you're saying. You're talking about women's safety in changing rooms. Let me finish, please. You're talking about women's safety in changing rooms. That's what Esther brought this conversation down to. But what I do know about is that 1 in 3 women in America are abused violently in their lifetime. And in every single day in America, 13,000 women are a victim. Why are we talking about one trans woman being in a changing room?
How dare you, a man, say anything about women feeling unsafe.
I am allowed to talk about safety
with biological men. No, you can't, because you're not a woman. You have never had a period. You've never been a woman in a woman's toilet.
Esther, is
so
that
don't
you're
even mention
picking
that.
on one. Well,
I'm not picking on that. I'm talking about the fact that women around the world are being affected.
Guys, if you're a cis woman listening to this, tell me, are you afraid of a trans woman peeing next to you? Are you afraid of that? Is that the biggest problem in women's bathrooms? No. Let me explain to anyone listening and to all the women, whether cis or trans, you know what it is. The biggest problem in women's bathrooms and changing rooms is what? The fucking line. Are you kidding me? Way too long of a line. Why? The men's restrooms in and out. But women, because we got to wipe more and we want to smell good and we actually wipe good, we take forever. And there aren't enough stalls. There need to be more stalls. And it was very funny when I was in that SeaTac airport and there was a man and he was in line. He's like, is this a line? Yes. Okay. Welcome to the Jim Crow of bathrooms. All right. It still exists for women everywhere. The lines are fucking crazy. I'm not really trying to make that comparison, but it worked sort of. But like, for real though, it's just so funny. Nobody's afraid. Nobody cares. It's the fucking bathroom. You know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of the person next to me hearing the plop from my poo. Okay. I'm afraid that, I can't shit in peace because like there's nobody in the bathroom, but there's like one other person and I really need to just like get like my mind right and like zen it out so I can poo. That's what I'm most afraid of, is someone going to hear me poo. If we could turn up the music, I don't give a shit who's shitting next to me.
Because we're validating.
Okay. You're shouting at biological men. Your words. Why am I? And you're allowed to talk about biological men. So why am I allowed to talk about women?
Hang on. We are conflating various issues here. So let's get back to the actual issue.
Yes, we are conflating various issues.
The issue of this young sophomore, Aidan Gallagher. I come back to Tommy here. I know this debate always inspires everyone to get very angry, and there's lots of allegations of transphobia and so on. I really think they're missing the central point. There is a reason we separate sexes in sport, and the reason, like I said, when the Olympics are in Paris later this summer, if you allowed women and men to compete in a generalized way, then women would win almost no medals. Literally, other than one or two events. Possibly equestrian, possibly archery. There are very few things.
Women would win equestrian and archery. Shut the fuck up, dude. You're just like, again, the male body isn't that amazing. Calm down.
Anything that involves power or stamina or speed or snow.
Piers, can I ask you a question really quickly?
Yes.
Because have you ever undergone any kind of like hormone replacement therapy?
Oh, you mean chopped off his penis? Because that's
I haven't.
Hang on. I'm not talking to you, Esther.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Okay.
Sorry. That's really funny. Esther needs to shut the fuck up. Well, I'm trying to explain something to Piers. I'm talking to Piers.
Yeah.
Because actually the body does undergo an incredible amount of toil.
What it doesn't do, Francesca, I've heard this argument.
Hang on.
It doesn't change. It doesn't change your body mass.
No,
it doesn't.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely can change your body mass.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely. The
amount
amount
doesn't.
of
You
hormones
remain as muscular. I know this. Talk to someone like Caitlyn Jenner, who was, as a man,
oh my God,
was the decathlon gold medal winner for the United States of America, and was then, when she took up golf, having transitioned, was told she could tee off from the women's tees. Right, the women's tees are 50 yards further ahead than the men's, and she said she was winning every tournament.
Asking Caitlyn Jenner for any.
So, yeah, that's Caitlyn Jenner. Like, look, once again. When you're undergoing like hormone replacement therapy or puberty blockers or all this stuff, your body is going through a whole lot. There are all kinds of unforeseen complications, recovery time, all kinds of shit that you can go through, right? To say nothing of like, mood changes and everything that could affect how you are performing. But I'll grant Piers. And again, I'll grant the 69% of Americans who maybe don't agree with me on this, that there could be an advantage. Like, I'm going to grant that. There could be an advantage. But what is the disadvantage? To me, the disadvantage is saying, no, second-class citizen, there are some things you cannot do. And I'm not willing to do that. I think that's why the Oregon School District says that. I think that's why they know the slippery slope of saying, okay, yes, trans people are people, except there's some things these people cannot do. What does that set up, right? So they would rather allow the 1 in 1,000 or more, I mean, that's so generous. The 1 in thousands athlete who wants to compete and trans athlete that wants to compete that happens to win, they would rather allow that than begin a cycle where we know where it ends. And it's not just sports. People who are like, oh, it's just sports. Bullshit, man. Because you immediately heard just in this debate it go to bathrooms. And then you can immediately hear it going to all kinds of things, being out in public, whether or not like what jail cell you get held in, which already is a big issue, whether or not you can change your identity on your driver's license, right? There's all kinds of things and all kinds of ways that when you say you give an inch to the transphobes, and yes, I'm going to call them transphobes, or people who think, no, but sport is unique. No, because it creates still a differentiation of treatment. And once again, we are going by what people say, what they are. Because if you were to do let's do the genital check, let's do the hormone check, man, you get into a fucking world of ridiculousness that is absolutely not worth it and has nothing to do with athletics. Nothing to do with it. Can you imagine, like, out of all the scandals that there already are in, like, women's gymnastics, be like, yeah, no, we're gonna have a genital inspector. That's Hector, the genital inspector. You know, he comes along with the U.S. women's team. He's really a good guy. No, it's all on the up and up. He just does a little touchy tooty-too, and once every 2 or 3 months, just in case someone's growing a dick. All right. And that's Hector. He's the general inspector and he's perfectly normal and he gets paid $150,000 to look at little girls' vaginas. It's super normal. This is the world that they want. This is literally the world that they want.
Any advice or practical information is like asking you, Piers, for how to get a six-pack. Like, what are we doing?
Actually, I've got quite an impressive growing six-pack as my Instagram feed will tell you.
The point is my Instagram feed will tell you? Is he working out on his Instagram? We're supposed to now go to his Instagram and thirst over Piers Morgan? No, thank you. Oh, God, there's a lot more.
I want to point this out.
Tell me.
Piers, I want to point this out because your guests here, I mean...
Okay, so Tommy Lahren gets mad at James, who says that, like, I wouldn't listen to Caitlyn Jenner. I think that I didn't agree with James there, like, listening to Caitlyn Jenner. No, Caitlyn Jenner's trans, and Caitlyn Jenner is a trans woman who's also a vile Republican. Because guess what? Trans women are just people. Trans people are just people, and they have every right to have backwards-ass views just the same as anyone else. They're literally the same kinds of people. You can absolutely be trans. Like, people who defend trans rights, that's not saying literally every trans person is an angel that's fallen from heaven. And no. So again, this like, oh, you would give them special status? Where? You would think with the trans bathroom debate that there's a special bathroom that is gold, that has like scented toilet paper, that has beautiful music playing, there are harps in the corner, and that's the trans bathroom. Nobody is arguing for trans people to be treated above, better than, or anything. Literally, that's not what anyone's saying. That's not what anyone has ever been saying. So it's so funny to me that they go anyway. Tommy's actually quite boring on this. So
and talk about the snake eating its own tail. They're sitting there talking about trans rights and affirming transgender ideology, but then they're saying that Caitlyn Jenner, who is probably the most famous trans person, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Because Caitlyn Jenner is not only a Republican, but Caitlyn Jenner also calls out biological men competing in women's sports. So your guests sit here and they cry boo-hoo tears about trans rights, women, but then they dismiss Caitlyn Jenner.
So I'm trying to say trans women because I really hate this biological men thing. Just trans women. Just call them trans women. It's okay. You just said that, bitch. Like, Tommy is so inconsistent. She started off being like, stop with the biological men, biological female. I don't want to be called biological woman. I'm just a woman. And it's like, and then she's like, biological men. Just call them trans women. Just call them trans women, dude. That's all you got to do. If you want to call them, I could call them women. You could just say women. But if you want to say trans women, say trans women.
It's amazing. These are also the same people who claim to be feminists, but also don't care about actual women being robbed of opportunities.
Yeah.
That's why liberalism is a disease, and you can just let these people talk, and they argue with themselves, Piers.
The point is, if Aidan Gallagher competed according to their biological sex, they would not be succeeding. They wouldn't be winning state
Piers can't gender her properly, can he? He can't say her. There.
Damages. They would actually not even be qualifying for the finals. That is the point everyone's missing.
Piers,
is that actually
why do you care about
women's integrity, women's sport?
But you don't. Have you done a segment on Caitlin Clark and pay disparity? Have you done a where were you when the U.S. women's national team?
He doesn't need to.
You have no idea.
Well, hang on,
Francesca, you have no idea. Actually,
shut up.
You have no idea what I've said about women's pay.
What about when the women's national team wins in the United States, right? They've won like 4 times at this point. And what happens? Oh, Megan Rapinoe, who is both a lesbian and also like one time knelt during the national anthem. She is not a real patriot. They freak out. Donald Trump tweets about her.
No, you're missing Megan Rapinoe. Megan Rapinoe is a very, very good football player, but also incredibly irritating. And I noticed that when she...
It's just like, happens to be a lesbian, that has nothing to do with it, but any woman who doesn't like me is irritating, as well as women who refuse to come on my show, like Meghan Markle. Irritating, and happens to be black, and I just, they're just irritating and uppity. But it's just so funny to me, because this is a great point. This is an amazing point that Piers Morgan basically makes here. Just amazingly tone deaf.
She retired, it was only then she said that she wanted trans women to be playing in the American women's national team. In other words, when it wasn't possible for that person to take her position. Because here's a scenario for you. Lionel Messi puts his hand up and says, actually, I'm feeling like a woman today. Do you play him in the American women's national team, Francesca? Yes or no?
Lionel Messi had to undergo an incredible...
Yes or no?
He had to undergo an incredible amount of treatment when he was young. He had a bunch of like...
Would you allow him to put his hand...
So I was trying to make a point, but I'm not doing a great job. And I'm going to point out my flaws in this. Lionel Messi underwent a ton of treatment when he was a kid because he had a growth stunt. He was not growing. And so he was obviously born in Argentina. I lived for 5 years in Buenos Aires. He was from Rosario, and his dad took him to one of the biggest football clubs in Buenos Aires, which was River Plate, and was like, hey, look at this amazing kid, but he's got this growth problem. He's not growing, and he needs massive treatments. I don't know if they were hormone treatments specifically, but he needs treatment in order to grow properly. I mean, he's still like, what, 5'5"? He's very, very short, 5'7". And River Plate did not invest in him. They were like, we don't have the money for that. Maybe you should go somewhere else. So they went to Barcelona. They went to Spain. And Spain was like, yep, we'll pay for it. And we did all the treatments. So that's the point that I was making. Like, you could argue that gave Messi an unfair advantage. The fact that he underwent incredible amounts of treatment as a child, and that gave him, an unfair advantage on the pitch. Like, you could, again, people take all kinds of medicine, all kinds of performance enhancing drugs every single day. He was diagnosed with a growth disorder, and he had to be injected with growth hormones in each of his legs every single night. Ugh. I hate the internet. I can't find but anyway, so that's the point that I was trying to make. I didn't quite seal the deal, but here's Piers, and he thinks he's got me because if Lionel Messi wants to play, would you let him? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I would. Yes, we stan a trans Messi.
Say he's a woman for him to actually American women's national team. He had a growth
spurt. I'm a big Messi fan, but let me just explain this.
Answer my question. Would you allow him, if he said, I'm a woman, to play in the American women's national team?
You're using the wrong pronoun
Yes, right now. Hell yeah. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Messi on the U.S. women's national team? Hell yeah.
Would you allow Usain Bolt to do that and be in the sprinting team?
Yes, because that would mean they're a trans woman. They identify as women.
I get it. So just to be clear, you would let Lionel Messi play in the women's national football team and destroy women's football forever. You'd let Usain Bolt...
it'd be very difficult to get a ticket, which would suck.
I want to do a little checklist here. You'd let Usain Bolt compete as a sprinter in the American women's Olympic team?
Yes.
Okay. You would let Floyd Mayweather compete as a boxer in the women's American boxing team?
Yeah, of course you have to be like the heavy. So here's the problem with this. There was a clear joke there, and I didn't actually make the joke. It was distasteful, but it's very funny, which is no, I would not let Floyd Mayweather compete as a woman because he's hit enough women in his lifetime. So that was a joke that I left on the table because I am not perfect. And that would have been a fun rule of 3. Like, yes, Messi, yes, Hussein, absolutely not Floyd Mayweather. Absolutely not.
Lunatic.
I completely agree with I agree with Francesca, and I go further.
They would have to transition.
You always say that you want to be a penguin. I would let you live at London Zoo in a cage like the rest of the penguins.
You know what? I'd be a very popular exhibit.
You would. And you'd be locked up.
Here's the problem. It is so delusional. The idea you would let Usain Bolt say, I'm a woman, and compete against women on a racetrack when no man can compete with him, right? It's utterly ridiculous.
Well, I'm just convinced that they don't actually believe this, but the logical conclusion of their ludicrous arguments facilitates the need to actually say these things. Also, this is a testament to the poor quality of public education in both the US and the UK, that you both don't understand the basic economics of how sports entertainment works. If there are not enough bums on seats, you don't get paid enough. That's literally it. You're sitting there outraged about the fact that some female players don't make as much as some male athletes. Guess what? Go and buy the tickets to their games and start boosting up their viewing figures, and then maybe
look at the revenue for the Women's World Cup and compare it to the Men's World Cup.
Yeah, but Caitlin Clark broke records for how many people were watching the WNBA or whatever women's college basketball. See, I don't know enough, but like women's college basketball, they were crushing it. Not me, because I don't watch sports broadly. Which, yeah, maybe you're like, no, it's bad, but like I still know that she's getting $76,000 a year. Her counterpart is getting $6 million a year or $11 million a year. I think all these like rookie contracts are like they're insane. They're insane.
They are light years away.
Can I say one?
Caitlin Clark was the most watched women's college player ever. The ratings were through the roof. She's getting sponsored.
Compared to the average male college viewership.
Okay, we're going to move on.
She had more views than them.
We are moving on to a different issue.
Okay, they're moving on, and I'm going to call it a moment because we had some fun times with Tommy Lahren talking about Harrison Butker, speaking of sports, but I'll save that for Wednesday because mama tired. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.